Before we start today's show today, I want to thank our great new sponsor, MyPillow. That's right, MyPillow. They sent me one of those, Mike Lindell and the guys did, and I've been sleeping on it for a couple of weeks now, and I've never slept better. Hey, I've got a huge and busy schedule. Not only do I do the show, but we run an advertising agency. We help other podcasters with their shows throughout the country. We're constantly talking to folks, going to concerts. So my sleep is very important to me. So thanks to MyPillow. And remember, it's got a 10-year warranty guarantee, 60-day money-back guarantee. And yeah, you see MyPillow in stores like Walmart and Walgreens, but you can only get the premium pillows by calling MyPillow directly. So grab you one of those premium pillows. Call this number right here, 1-800-338-2330, 1-800-338-2330. Reference the code SGNP when you talk to them and say, hey, I want that premium pillow that Darren on SGNP has. It's that simple. They'll sell it to you, and it'll make life a whole lot better. So if you're having trouble sleeping, call MyPillow today, 1-800-338-2330. Use the code SGMP or go to their website, mypillow.com, and check them out. Hey, make sure you tell them SGNP sent you.
Welcome to SGNP with your hosts, Darren Sutherland and Jeff Steele, one of the fastest growing Christian music podcasts of its kind. Darren and Jeff discuss industry information you will not find from your local radio station or in a magazine. Sit back for the next bit and take a listen to SGNP. The fun is about to begin.
And welcome back to SGNP. Darren Sutherland and the good doctor, Jeff Steele, here this morning. Jeff, are you awake, my friend? How's it going?
Well, I'm always awake. We may doze, but we never close.
Jeff, in the past, I guess this is going on 4 weeks now. This is our fourth week. We've been doing this 3 weeks out in the public. But since August 6th, when we released this show, we're proud to announce that we've had over 50,000 downloads worldwide. And that's more than you and I ever dreamed. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, certainly in this short a time period. And let me make it clear, you said since we've been doing this out in the public, I want to assure people we were not doing it in private. Our first show was public. Our first show was public.
That's right. We didn't practice any at all. And you're going to hear some great guests come on in this show and talk. And you know what I got thinking about, Jeff? You know, and I know we did that show with Libby the other week where she talked about Tracy losing weight. And, of course, you drove and traveled with the Steels day after day for years through the 90s and early 2000s, and you do it now when you leave your church up in Coleman to go out. But we made a post on Southern Gospel News Podcast, the Facebook site. Tell us some of the great restaurants out there. And, man, we got about 40 to 50 people just popping in with great family restaurants. Was there ever a restaurant that when you were going to a date that you just said, hey, we're going to stop at this place on the way, or maybe even went out of the way to get something to eat? Jeff, did you ever find that? Because, I mean, you're like me. You like to eat. So is there any place you can think of off the top of your head?
Probably the one that pops to my mind, and it's not, and it is a family place, but we would go out of the way to go to Lambert's, the home of the Throwed Rolls. They've got a place down at the beach in Alabama. They've got one in Missouri. Yeah, Foley in Missouri, too. They've got one. And
yeah.
I think the thing that I marveled at Lambert's, the Throwed Rolls, that was good. That's what they call it now. I know how to speak proper English. They call it home of the Throwed Rolls.
Yeah.
But, man, they give you so much food before you order. You're almost full before you get it. And if you have a half a brain, you better order a half of an order, because it's really the home of so much food.
Have you ever been there and there not been a line? Because I've been to both. I've been to the one in
never.
I've been to one in Missouri, and I've been to one in Foley down in Alabama. And every time I go to one in Foley, if you're not there by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're not getting in till late.
Well, lunch is almost just as bad. They're advertising, whatever they do for advertising. You and I might want to take notes on this. Whatever they do to advertise that place, and let's be honest, they only have 2, so it's not like they have a chain across the country, although they probably will if they keep on. Their advertising has got to be great because there's never, it's like Disney World. There's never not a line.
And let's be honest, the one, I don't even know what town it's in. I've been there because I was driving to St. Louis from Memphis when I stopped there. But the one in Missouri is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's in the absolute middle of nowhere. I mean, I think, was it Cape Girardeau, something? I mean, just in an exit that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just there. And
it's between Cape Girardeau and the Poplar Bluff exit, if I remember right, because you're right, there's nothing there but that. But, man, it's just, you will drive out of your way to go.
Yeah. So anyway, go to our Facebook site, Southern Gospel News Podcast. Over 3,000 of your best friends have been there. And folks, look, let me remind you this also. We've got a website that we're building that's about to come online. And you'll be able to find us at Southern Gospel News Podcast anytime, day or night. It'll have all our shows on there. It'll have links to the Steels and Jeff's ministry. Because at the end of the day, and I kid Jeff about this, yes, we've got a great podcast. Yes, we've got a great group of folks listening to us. But Jeff's a preacher. You owe it to yourself to click in to his church, Redeeming Grace Church in Coleman, Alabama, and listen to him a time or two, and listen to his family sing. You know, our theme song around here, Jeff, and I just kind of made this our theme song because I like the song a whole lot, and you wrote it, and we don't have to worry about getting, permission and all this kind of stuff to use it. But it's so true because it's true in my life, is but God. And if you haven't heard that song, Google it, go to YouTube, download it from iTunes. But that song's an awesome song, Jeff, and you've done a great job writing that song. And of all your songs that ever went number one and all your songs you've ever wrote, I think that song's ministered to a lot of folks.
And my question would be, what do you mean you don't have to get permission to use? That's a joke. That's a joke. If you'll ever just slip up and play the right video, that'll be fine. You played it twice on the Facebook page, and both times in the wrong copy. That song actually won a couple of different awards for Video of the Year, and we haven't seen that yet. So I keep waiting on that one to come up.
Well, I could use some help because we only can do so much, man. And when you got 50,000 folks and you're trying to keep up, you're just blessed. You are just blessed, and man, it's been fun. Hey, today we got a great interview coming up with a young man that don't do interviews. And he was the first to tell us. That'll be interesting. He was the first to tell us he don't do many interviews. He says, my brother does all those. And when I talked to his mom on the phone, and she was lining everything up for us, she said, you sure you don't want Ronnie? And I said, no, we want Michael because Michael never does them. So great interview coming up with Michael Booth of the Booth Brothers, Jeff.
Can't wait. If he doesn't talk, that'll be really good. If we'll ask questions, give him about 3 minutes to respond in total silence. This ought to be a really interesting program.
Man, you're so nice. You're so nice. A little bit about the Booth Brothers before we get started. Their dad, which you knew, Ron, and you knew him pretty good. You talked to him from time to time. I never had the chance to meet Ron. But started the group back in the 50s. They revived it back in the 90s. And you know what? They've done pretty good for themselves. They won a Grammy Award for Best Southern Gospel and Country Bluegrass Gospel Album. And have been nominated for a couple of Dove Awards. So regardless of where they are today and what's going on in their group today, when you've won one of those big timers, you're in pretty good company. Don't you agree?
Well, of course, I agree. I was just playing on my headphone there, but yeah, they're great, and we're going to enjoy the interview. If we ever get Michael on the phone, we'll have him going here soon.
Yeah, we'll get him going and up in Nashville and get him going. If he don't answer the phone soon, I'm going to give his cell phone number out over the air and let everybody give him a call. Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, could you imagine that?
Just don't do it to me. I already don't answer 800 calls, and really, truly, if it's not already in my phone and doesn't show up as somebody's name that's in my phone, I generally don't answer it. Who has the time?
That's right. Jeff, real quick, before we go any further, we're going to take a commercial break and come back with the Michael Booth interview and talk to him. but I had a chance to speak briefly this week, and I know you've had a chance to speak briefly over the past couple of weeks with our friend Tony Gore. And let's just all continue to remember Tony in your prayers as he's battling some things, and I'll leave it at that without getting too personal.
Yeah, my wife talked to him very recently, and I think he is some better, but man, he has really been down. And just, I'm with the HIPAA laws. I don't want to get into all that, but he's had a rough go of it, and we need to remember it in our prayers.
And you know what? We thank him for being a charter sponsor to the show, and we got some new sponsors coming along next week, man. We're growing, Jeff. What do you think about that? I mean, some folks we didn't even know that didn't even know about gospel music, but they knew our audience was very receptive and very loyal, and I mean, it's kind of amazing, wouldn't you think?
Well, it's going to be a great week next week, and it's been a great three or 4 weeks that we've been doing this, and look forward to introducing our folks to some new folks and putting people together.
That's it, because we're all one big happy family. Let's go to that interview. Here we are on the Kia Skyline with our buddy Michael Booth. Let's take a break. We'll come right back after a message from Tony Gore.
Hello, this is Todd Nealon. While my sister's out carrying on our family name, singing the great gospel music, I'm at home listening to SGNP. Hey, congratulations, Darren and Jeff, and Southern Gospel News Podcast on 50,000 downloads. That is incredible. Hey, what's wrong with living right anyway?
Come see what all the smoke is about at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in the heart of the Smokies, Sevierville, Tennessee. Start off with T's loaded tater chips, some great sweet tea, then have some of his famous fried chicken, a pulled or sliced pork plate, or the best barbecue ribs in the Smokies. And oh, did we mention homemade mac and cheese? And dessert lovers, it's worth the trip just for a piece of cake. Voted the best barbecue in the Smokies, Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in Sevierville, Tennessee. And remember, gospel music fans, you never know who you'll see while at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill. For more information, visit them 24/7 at TonyGore.com.
And now let's go to the Kia Skyline on SGMP. He's riding down the road probably in Nashville, Tennessee on his cell phone. So blame it on the bridges and the hills and the valleys of central Tennessee. Here we got Jeff over in Coleman, Alabama on the Skyline, and Michael Booth up in Nashville. Michael, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Got a sunny day here, and I live a little bit south of Nashville, so we're happy to have the sun out today.
And it's y'all have had a crazy spring up there. I mean, wind and rain, snow a couple of weeks ago, and
yeah,
it's been fun. We were up in Franklin a lot, so I know what you're talking about up there, my friend. Michael, you know what? Most of the time, and I told you this before we started talking, and Jeff knows this, that Ronnie, you and your brother have been traveling with the Booth brothers for years, and Ronnie most of the time does a lot of the interviews and all that kind of good stuff. And I said, Michael, when I was talking to you the other night when we ran into each other, and I was talking to your assistant there in the office, she said, "You sure you don't want Ronnie?" I said, "You know what? We'll get Ronnie anytime. Let's talk to Michael, because Michael does all the talking on stage, but doesn't do the talking on the programs. And you know, we got, you know, in the addition of this show right here, by the time this show comes out, we will have had 50,000 people downloading this show in every country in the world. I sat and listened to you at a concert the other night, and I listened to you talk, and what you said was so true. And that's why I wanted you here, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us, my friend.
Well, I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of interviews. I think people would be disappointedly surprised to find out I'm much more introverted than they would think I am. I don't know. It's easy on a platform, but once I get off of it, I kind of clam up a little bit. But I feel pretty at home with you guys. I've known Jeff for years. We didn't work together all that much, but we were around each other enough to where I realized he's a good egg.
Yeah, we try to keep him in line.
Yeah, right. Heck of a songwriter.
Well, thank you. Let me say this. You're welcome is really all I can say. This may be the first time anybody has ever heard this story, but if you'll check with Paul, you'll find out it's the absolute truth. Paul called me one day at my last church. And I said, yeah, man, what's going on? He said, I feel like I'm being called into the solo ministry, and I just want to see if y'all might have me at your church. And I've known Paul for years and years and years.
Yeah.
We got to talking, and I just listened to him, and I could hear something in his voice. And finally I said, well, you called me, so I'm going to tell you what I think. I said, I think you need to hang up this phone and stop calling pastors and stop calling promoters. And you need to find something to do to make a living until the Lord sends the right call your way. I mean, I just faced that man to man to him. I said, you need to stop calling these people. And he didn't get argumentative or anything. He just said, well, okay, I'll take what you said into consideration. And it wasn't like less than a year later, he's on the bus with the Booth brothers. And then I saw him out to eat one night somewhere, and he just walked up to me and put his arms around me, whispered to me, and he said, oh, thank you, Pastor. Your advice was so spot on. And as a singer, I just said, what better job in the world could there be than to be the baritone singer with the Booth brothers, because you guys sing in such a low range. I mean, he's on vacation now, let's face it.
Yeah, he is, until we find out how high he can sing. So now I put my leads in the lead range, and he can sing over me.
Oh, yeah, he can do that. He's he's one of the best vocalists I've ever heard.
Michael.
He's a phenomenal. But I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you for that. Was good advice, and knowing what I know about Paul, that was a good time for him to just he did a lot of growing, a lot of good things happened during that time. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'll say this, and I'll let Darren ask what he wants to. Your dad is one of the, I don't care, he's one of the kindest people I've ever had interaction with in my life. He called me one day, and we were talking about a specific individual whose name doesn't need to get on here for any reason. But your dad called me out of a real concern for that guy. He was one of y'all's former employees. And I never knew your dad. I always knew you and Ronnie, but I never knew your dad. He's, believe it or not, he's considerably older than I am. And he was just genuinely concerned about the guy, and just a real demonstration of just his sheer kindness. He's just a great guy.
He is. Everybody loves Dad, man. They love his jokes, too.
Well, but Michael, let me ask you this right here. And, Jeff mentioned it, but you guys, what do you think? Let's just talk about the Booth brothers for a second. Move past the personal stuff and just talk about the Booth brothers for a second.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear the Booth brothers, the adjective that I hear people describe is the word smooth. Okay, and looking outside, being on the inside of the industry and watching the musical groups come along. You guys really, you guys have sang for how long now? I mean, you guys have been around for years and years and years. But
it'll be almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. Yeah. But for whatever reason, and let me give you this mantle. And when I hand you this mantle, take it with a trophy or whatever I'm putting in your hand. Take it with a grain of salt. It was almost like the cathedrals retired. And then there was a vacuum for that audience. And somehow, in God's plan, the Booth brothers ended up with a lot of it, when a lot of people was wanting to place that mantle with somebody else. And let me tell you why I say that, friend. Because the same people that love the Booth brothers love the cathedrals. Why do you think that is?
Wow. Well, I mean, that's a tremendous... How do you answer that? Because the Cats were so we all put them at such a high level, and so thank you for that. It's very kind and gracious. I think the cathedrals had a way of getting people in their living room. When you went to their concert, the stage and the lights and everything went away, and the next thing you know, you're sitting around the coffee table with George and Glenn and Scott and Ernie and Roger. And I think that there's a lot of other reasons, but I think that was one of the largest reasons. And that's a goal of ours, is when we step on a platform, is as quickly as we can remove the 4 feet of the stage from the audience and get around the coffee table with people. And so, and when you can do that, then you can lean in and you can share some things that will allow them to go home and actually tangibly apply those things to their life. And now you become part of their life, and now we're family. And I think that has a lot to do with people wanting to come back to another program and get some more tangible applications, if you will. Does that make sense?
Makes perfectly good sense. I think, and Jeff, you'll agree with me here, if you listen to some of the songs that you guys sing, they're storytelling songs, and a lot of people love those, and they can relate. Like when you sing the song "Ask the Blind Man," he saw it too. You know, I mean you're painting a picture in someone's head, and George and Glenn had a great ability to do just that. You know.
Oh, yeah. Well, as soon as Glenn would say, "Once on a hillside," I mean, you had a picture in your head. Yeah. That's a great description of it.
Yeah. Jeff?
Well, the Booth brothers, one thing else you have to say about them, and this foregoes their singing, which is great. But, you know, at some point, and I've talked about this on 2 or 3 other shows, it boils down to human kindness. People know when you're, to use a phrase, when you're quartetting them, you know, trying to give them that look down your nose thing. I've never gotten that from y'all at all. And there were times it could have happened because, you know, we've all had high times. We've all had times that weren't so high. And when you're on one of those high times, you don't tend to remember the times that maybe weren't so high. So you use that moment to generally try to make yourself look better. Maybe it's somebody else's expense. I've never gotten that from y'all. Ronnie is very genuinely kind. You're very kind. Your dad's a kind guy. Paul, people may not know this about him because he's hard to get to know, but he's always generated that kind of kindness. And I think, too, and George and Glenn were a lot like that. When people feel, even if you're a good faker, when people sense that you're like that, they come into a program wanting to hear what you have to say, wanting to hear what you have to sing. And it's very important to convey that. I can think of several secular entertainers. Garth Brooks is one. He tries very hard to pull you in to what he's doing by being interested in what you're doing. So, you know, don't ever underestimate the power of human kindness.
I appreciate it. You know, that's very kind too. It's encouraging to hear that. I'm glad the reputation is that. We also feel of responsibility and accountability of the platform. You know, I guess at the risk of sounding fundamentally preaching, but if Jesus is the drawing card, it better be about him. And it's gospel music, so therefore it better be about him. And what he wants you to do is treat people kindly. So that's as simple as I can put it. I think we're responsible for that. And, you know, when we love people, you can get worn out by it. Jeff, you know, traveling. The other night, within a span of 15 minutes, I heard about, after a concert, I heard about 3 deaths of people that had seen us the year before. Now they're gone, and these people are missing them. And, man, they need some kindness. They need some love and encouragement.
But it does pull something out of you, though.
It does, and we're learning
it just takes something out of you, and it's hard to hear about that before a program as well as after the program because, you know, I know you do. I feel that stuff when people say it.
Well, it's because you care. If you didn't care, it wouldn't bother you. And so that's what happened when you are a caring person. You feel it, and it gets on your shoulders, and you take it home. I was thinking of a family still on my mind. About 3 weeks ago, we were out in Dallas at a church, and a couple came up to me and told me about their young son who grew up coming to our concerts and listening to our music. And this young man has chosen a lifestyle that is contrary to a biblical lifestyle, and their parents they're brokenhearted. And man, I felt that. I feel it now because I have boys, and my heart just breaks for them, absolutely breaks for them. So that's part of the casualty of war, if you will. If you love people, their burdens will sit on your shoulder. And so I'm saying all that to say what we're doing after 30 years and at least 20-some years full-time on the road, we're pulling our schedule back considerably. We have over the last few years, and next year will be even quite a bit more. And we're just finding it takes more time to recoup physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And if we want to maintain quality in all those areas, I don't think we can't keep the schedule that we have for the last 20 years. So that's a big step for us.
Michael, you guys have an incredible ability on stage to take timeless classic hymns and songs, put southern gospel songs in the midst, and even transition over to a contemporary song, and people not even realize it's going on. And you know what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, I sat there the other night when you sang, let's just be honest, I sat there the other night and listened to you guys take a Stephen Curtis Chapman song, and it was tremendous. Yeah. And it's portraying the gospel. I've watched Eli Fortner with the McCameys sing a Bebo Norman song. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In the contemporary world. Right. And that crowd just sits there and their hands are up in the air. What do you think? And you mentioned this when we were in the concert. There is more aggravation, disagreement over music in churches than anything going out there right now. What's your perception of that? And what do we need to do, in your opinion, as Christian folks, not only artists and people of the Christian music community, to try to combat and bring the church back together? I love what you said about the church. You said the little church we were in, this is simple. I love this. So speak to that for just a second, if you don't mind.
Sure. I appreciate it. Music is very divisive. It's something I mentioned on a platform the other day. Bill Gaither said, if people say music brings the world together, absolutely not. If you don't think so, then get in the car with your grandkids and find a radio station everybody's happy with. and you'll realize how separated we all are. Our approach, we have a certain window we can musically hang in. It is Southern, but we were also, Ronnie and I were tremendously influenced by 70s and 80s country, the Eagles, Gatlin Brothers, Oak Ridge Boys, Statler Brothers, but also the contemporary Imperials back in the day, Harvest, gospel stuff, but also Journey, REO Speedwagon, and I was big into jazz also. So all those influences come in. So the key to that is don't be a hero, but you can use flavors of these things, and your palette is wide. And if you feed the people what they want first, then they will go along with you within reason to these other genres and other styles. And if you notice in the program, we tip our hat to something, but then we'd come back, and then we'd tip our hat and we'd come back. Yeah. So you just don't push too hard. In those, there's you play to the audience, but you also play to the gatekeepers, meaning the music ministers, the promoters. These are the people that say you can come or you can't come. And a lot of the churches nowadays, they're so opposed to anything real traditional. The gospel groups are having a tough time getting into churches. So if you can tip your hat a little bit to some of these other, using some of the Geddes music, the people who wrote In Christ Alone, that kind of stuff will go a long way in opening those doors for you to get in there.
No doubt. And the way you done it was perfect. It was perfect. I asked, we were talking before we came on the air, with another artist, and I was talking to Hovey Lister before he died. I was good friends with him, and I said, Hovey, if you were singing This Day and Time, what style of music would you be doing? He said, I would always do gospel, but I would sing what people wanted to hear us sing too. And I would want to make sure they enjoyed it no matter what they were doing. That's sage advice from somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? So
that's pretty good. I like that.
What makes the Booth Brothers different?
Well, it's hard to answer that from the inside. I think a lot of it goes back to our influences, and one thing in particular is, if I can verbalize this properly, we have everybody has vocal limitations, and we certainly have them. When we were being influenced by the music, we didn't really pursue much high and loud stuff. So I didn't grow up in my growing teen years really trying to bust C's and D's and all that stuff. It really was of no interest in large part to me. So we didn't really go there, and it's a good thing because I think I'd be smart by now had we done that. So musically, we worked within our limitations. There's no point in proving you can't do something. Now, that's write that one down. I think a lot of the young people, they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof in the studio, but then you get out on a concert 10 days into a 12-day trip, and you can't pull it off, and now everybody knows it. So there's those limitations. So within our limitations, we had that, and then we were also singing. I mean, the first few years, the only places we sang were fundamental independent Baptist churches, and they did not clap, they did not respond, and you had to know deep within your spirit whether or not you were connecting with an audience because they were going to give you no verbal indications. And so I laugh and I kid about that now, but I think it's a perfect training ground to learn you to communicate with an audience, because you have to know on the deepest levels whether or not you're connecting or not.
What did they put?
And so,
go ahead.
So to answer your question, I think that had a lot to do with us creating a sound that was different, a little bit different than maybe some other sounds, because we didn't rely on the high note for the excitement. The song had to be strong. I mean, that's the main thing. Number one is the song.
Right.
And then you arrange that song properly, and you perform that song properly, and hopefully God shows up and uses it. And that'll give you a platform that'll last for a long time.
Jeff?
Glenn Payne used to say, don't ever record on your project any note that you can't sing every night. And there's so much sage advice there because, man, you record that tremendous super dyna-whopping note that you can only do once. And then that's what everybody shows up for, and you can't do it again. So what a waste of time that was.
Yeah, I cut a song, a Mosey Lister song years ago, and the ending was a D above C. And so I got the track lowered where it sounds funny saying that, it was only a D flat above C. And I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then, man, one day you wake up and you think, that thing's hard to hit.
Especially on the 10:30 a.m. services.
Oh, yeah, and I had to do that a few times. That was back in the day. We don't feel so led to sing in the morning anymore, but we used to have to.
I like that. I like that. Hey, talking about singing, let me ask you this right here, Michael. You talk about recording. You've been on the Gaither tours for years, and you were Mr. Gaither for years. And we're talking about a voice, hearing on a record and in person. How does David Phelps do it? How does David maintain what he does night in, night out? It's a freak of nature, if you ask me, but how's he do it?
Well, you just said it. I don't want to take any credit away from his study, because one of the reasons he can do it, because he did the work nobody else was willing to do. The guy absolutely he worked extremely hard in his craft. He was with the right teachers, but God also gave him, those tones. My tone, if I studied as hard as David Phelps studied, I would still never be able to produce the tones that he has, because God gave him that big old head. and that's where your tones resonate. So you have a combination of God designed that man, his chest cavities, his head cavity, all up in his forehead and nasal cavity. That's where those tones resonate. So God made him special, and then David did the work. And I think the only time I've ever heard him shank something, if you will, is he sharped a B flat because he was overcompensating with airflow. So it's my lifelong goal to sharp a B flat, now. And so if I did, I'd be bragging about it.
We mentioned Hamill a few minutes ago. I remember standing backstage with Hamill years ago when David was first coming on. And you mentioned the word freak of nature, and I remember Hamill just looked at him and he said, "He's a freak. He's just a freak." Yeah, and he meant it in the most complimentary way, but he is a freak of nature. He's unbelievable.
He really, I've been on the side of the stage hundreds and hundreds of times. I've stood next to him. If you want to feel insignificant in life as a tenor, stand next to Dave Jeff and sing with him. You really have to be secure that God is sovereign and he loves you regardless, because you will feel like jumping off the bridge after.
Michael,
I get it. I told somebody one time, I said, I used to write down anapplications to say occupation. I put singers, and then I heard Phelps and I stopped putting that down anymore.
Yeah, right. I quit.
Michael, you said earlier, and we'll close out with this right here because I know you're busy, my friend. I appreciate the time.
All right.
Tell everybody a little bit about Michael Phelps, the man, Michael Phelps' family, and what we should. You said you were cutting back some with the Booth brothers coming up. What should we expect from the Booth brothers going forward?
Hey, Michael, we've just gone from singing to swimming now. He meant
swimming.
Michael.
I was going to ignore it, but and just go with it. But Jeff, since you blew it open, I don't know. If changing my last name would help me hit notes like David, I think I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
Or swim like Michael.
Yeah.
The BP brothers.
That's why it's podcast, guys, because we love. That's why people love this, because it's like Survivor on TV. You never know what's going to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, here's my goal over the next, moving forward. And guys, I don't have it figured out. I'm trying to figure it out. And the word is balance. For almost 30 years, it's been pound it and grind it out, Booth Brothers. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to provide for your family. You're trying to increase your skill and your craft. You want to love on people. You want to grow in the Lord, and all those things. And so now I've seen too many. I'm careful how I say this. I don't want to walk off a bus and die.
Yeah.
And neither does Ronnie, and neither does Paul. And I want to look back, because every night I'm on a platform means I'm not with Vicky, Austin, and Jonathan, and Christian. Well, he's traveling with me doing the merchandise, but I'm not with my wife. And there needs to be a justifiable reason to account for that. What I don't want to do is, God forbid, any of my family go before me. I want to minimize the regrets. And so I promised Vicky years ago I would never do anything that I didn't feel was justified or necessary. And so sometimes you turn down award shows, sometimes you turn down performances, sometimes honestly has a lot to do with why I don't do many radio things. But I told her I would only do the things I feel I have to do. So trying to maintain that, and I can't say I don't perfectly, guys. Just brief. I'm just flubbed up more than that. But that's the goal moving forward. So we're adjusting our schedule, but we're going to keep the quality. And that's part of the reason of adjusting of the schedule, so that we can maintain this level of performance and ministry for a long time to come. So that's our goal.
Nice. Jeff, you got anything?
I'm done. I've talked enough.
You talked enough. Can we get a liner on that, Nick? Can we get a liner on that? Anyway, we'll edit that part out. See, that's the great thing about podcasts, Michael. We can edit that out, but we can also keep it and use it when we want. You know what I'm saying?
When you're in the studio now with tuning and editing, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
That's why I have so much respect for the Kingsmen of the 80s. They did all that with no tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, go back and listen to the Statesmen sing If God Didn't Care.
Yeah.
It's near perfection, man. Near perfection. Unbelievable.
And no tuners. No tuners.
No. And it was a band, everybody, you're probably around 2 mics.
No.
And I can even go further than that. Go back and listen to Three Dog Night sing anything from the 60s. Incredible. I heard them about 2 months ago, and at 75 and 76, they're still doing it.
Still doing it. Wow. Hey, did you know much of that the old Boston stuff was cut in you look up, I won't go into details, but look up how they used to record some of that old stuff, man. It will blow your mind compared to...
It was in that guy's apartment, a lot of it.
Yes. Incredible.
I mean, that's incredible.
And just think about this, guys, and we're talking Southern gospel, so everybody out there will know what I'm talking about when I say this. If Ronnie Van Zant hadn't died in a plane crash, would Leonard Skinner be as popular as they are today? But that's all I'll say. So, is the hokey pokey really what it's all about, fellas? That's what we're getting down to. That's it.
Well, let me stick my right foot in, my right foot out, and see what happens.
Michael, we appreciate your time, my man.
We'll know you in 10 minutes.
You know what, Michael? Let me say this on a personal note before we get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever want to see you in concert again. And here's why.
Yeah.
And here's why. Let me tell you why. And be honest with you. I don't think it could have been any better than it was in that small church and that small atmosphere the other night.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. That was an interesting situation that allowed that to happen, and I couldn't have been more grateful. We all got on the bus and talked about how wonderful it was. It reminded us when we got started.
Yeah.
And you just sang because you wanted to sing. There wasn't promoters, record companies, legal teams, all that stuff. You just sang because you love the Lord, love His people. That was a good night. I'm glad you got to see that.
Yeah, me too. And I've told a lot of people they've missed out. Buddy, we appreciate your time. Tell Ronnie and Paul we said hello, and tell Miss Peggy thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
And you ask Paul if that story I told about the absolute truth.
I will. I look forward to that.
He's such a good guy.
All righty.
We're grateful for him.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, fella.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
This is Al Fox with W241BT, Tuscaloosa, WTXT HD3 Fayette, 96.1 The Blessing. Congratulations, Darien and Jeff, on 50,000 downloads. That's a but God moment.
SGNP is brought to you by Kia. Join SGNP this summer for the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, a free concert at select local Kia dealers. The first concert is June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
The God on the mountain is still God in the valley.
It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, starting June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa. Part of Kia, America's best value summer event. America loves Kia and gospel music. It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, absolutely free. Brought to you by SGNP and Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, June 14th.
And welcome back to SGMP. Darren Sutherland, Jeff Steele, the good doctor. Jeff, Michael's a good guy, don't you think?
Yeah, we don't do tons of interviews on here, but when we get somebody interesting, we've certainly got the freedom to do whatever we want to.
I will say this about Michael, and Michael admits this to himself, admitted this to us off the air before we started. He said his brother Ronnie does most of the interviews, but Michael does all the speaking on stage. That's kind of different, don't you think? Most of the time the spokesperson for the group does the interviews, and he does the speaking on stage. So just a little different there from the Booth brothers. What do you think?
Well, this is not an easy job. interviewing and stuff like that. So everybody kind of falls into their own place and does their own thing. I know people that take care of the product, that they do the great job at that. People that take care of the staging take care of that. As far as the program with the people, and there's folks that do interviews. Everybody does their thing.
And it's funny. I will say this: I call him the godfather of Christian music, Bill Gaither. Bill is so comfortable on stage talking into a microphone to a crowd of people, and I've interviewed him a couple of times in my life, and he seems more comfortable on a stage than he does doing an interview. Not that he don't do a great interview, but it's just a different thing. I mean, you speak to that, Jeff. You've been on a stage 25 years and you're in a pulpit every Sunday. Is it a little bit easier on a stage because you control it rather than doing an interview where questions are coming at you and you don't know what's coming at you?
Well, it's just kind of all about what you grew up with and what you morphed into as an adult. It's been my experience. I'm a lot better in front of 300 or 3,000 than I'm in front of 3. And I think Michael's probably the same way.
Yeah, good guy. But I appreciate that good information on the Booth brothers. And it's funny to me that, Ronnie's now traveling. He has to get on a plane, fly to Nashville, get on the bus. Paul has to drive down from Ohio. And that was some great insight you gave about Paul calling you and saying you're thinking about a solo ministry, and you told him to hold on, that he needed to wait for something good, and something good happened to Paul Lancaster, don't you think?
Well, I really thought, I've known Paul so long. He's sung with so many groups, and he's such a great singer. Just something in his voice that day when he talked about wanting to become a solo artist, no real great insights, just something I picked up in his voice, and I said, man, the best is not today. The best is yet to come, and you need to be free when that comes. I had no idea the Booth brothers were going to give him that call, but thank God for him, it all worked out.
Yeah, and you know what? It did work out. You know who Paul looks like to me? Not in statue, but if he shaved that beard off with that hairdo, you know who he looks like to me? You ready for this?
No, tell it.
Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Okay.
If he shaved his beard, he would look like Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And for those of you that love wrestling, which is maybe 20% of our listeners, and we've lost the other 80% by me saying that because we know our demographics on this show, Jeff loves wrestling, so I always got to throw a wrestling analogy out there to you. So anyway.
Well, that was another life for me, and another time, another place, but I had a lot of fun in those days. It is what it is.
That's it. Hey, let's remind everybody about the Brad Steele Project. And Brad is Jeff's son. Go online and listen to his music, listen to the Steele's music, and listen to the phenomenal talent Brad is. But what we're calling the Brad Steele Project, Jeff, you want to explain it or you want me to? You tell everybody.
Go ahead. You got to go. And I talk about the kid all the time.
Well, anyway, the Brad Steele Project's real easy. Brad is 24 years old, right, Jeff? I think 24
and a half, he would have me tell.
Yeah, we got to get him on the air before long because we've talked about him for 8 episodes now or 7 or whatever it is. But go to somebody under 30 years old. If you want to listen to Southern Gospel News Podcast and you want to subscribe, and every time we do a show, you want it to be delivered directly into your iPhone, into your Android, into your laptop, whatever, iPad, whatever. Find somebody under 30 years old. Tell them, hey, I want to listen to Southern Gospel News Podcast. Can you show me how to subscribe to it? I promise you somebody under 30 will know how to do it and show you how to do it. I've got my producer here, Nick. Nick, let me ask you a question about this real quick. I'm going to get him to turn his microphone on. Nick, how hard is it? Now, Nick's 20. How old are you, Nick? 24, 25?
I'm 25.
25. Single. Did you like that, Jeff? 25 and single. He just threw the single in there. I didn't care if he's married or not. He just threw that in there. You know, I think he thinks we've got an audience of single ladies out there or something. We won't go into that. But, Nick, how hard is it to get one of your folks under 30s to help you download a podcast?
It's real simple. We always want to help and always want to talk to the older generation.
There you go. Doesn't that just sound? That just sounds so encouraging this morning. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, he just put me back in the bed.
He could have done it with a little energy. You know what I'm saying? At least I'll let him talk on the show and just sit over there. But anyway, no, find somebody or go to your podcast app on your phone, hit the podcast button, hit the search button, type in Southern Gospel News Podcast, or if all else fails, go to Google, Bing, whatever you use as your search engine on your computer, Southern Gospel News Podcast. Spell it all the way out. Southern Gospel News Podcast, Podcast. Did I get it right? Podcast. Yep, that's right. And download it. Jeff, be one of the 50,000 plus people that have downloaded. We're up to 51,000 now. But anyway, who's counting at this point? We're just doing this to have a good time. And here's what we want to do with this show. Jeff, you know this. Edify, inspire, encourage, and entertain. And if we can do 3 out of 4 every week, that ain't bad. Don't you think?
Not bad at all.
Man, great interview today. Great show. We talked about food, Jeff. We heard from Michael Booth talking about what's going on. We talked about a little bit about wrestling as usual. We talked about the Brad Still Project. Jeff, we got one of your best buddies and somebody you look up to in interview coming up next week.
I have to look up to him. He's taller than me.
He's taller than you, and he sings good, too. Arthur Rice going to be with us next week of the Kingdom Heirs, and that's going to be fun.
He sings better than I do. I'll tell you that. He's a great singer. He's
always been a great singer from his days with the Kingsmen all the way through. He'll talk about Hamill a little bit. If you don't know who Jim Hamill is, look him up, folks. One of the greatest MCs that ever graced the stage. And talk about the Kingdom Heirs, Dollywood, what it's like working with Dolly, and just what it's all about fun. Jeff, it's been another great show. Don't you agree?
Had a good time.
Before we say goodbye, Jeff, what do we always have to say to our listeners?
Well, you tell me.
What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you next week right here on SGNP.
SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com. And remember the Kia Summer Nights concert series, all 100% free, coming to a town near you. For more information on the concert series or to advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do.